B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We are back here on our Tuesday night shiur. We're continuing our series of the IGGERET HAGRA, Bezrat Hashem. Tonight we are in number 6 in the series. Tonight's shiur will be for a refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Yitzchak ben Dana, Orit bat Ilana, David ben Esriya, Doris bat Jora, Talia bat Sarah, Yitro ben Avraham, and also for a Atzlacha Rabba for and Zivug Egun for Netanel Yosef ben Avraham, and also Atzlacha Rabba for Joshua ben Noach, Alex ben Noach, Elad ben Doris, Gabi ben Doris, Oshri ben Doris, David ben Esriya, Yitro ben Avraham, Reuven Chaim ben Pala Parel, also for a Zivug Egun Bezrat Hashem, and for Marsha bat Julie, Ayla bat Marsha, Samuel ben Marsha, Cephas ben Marsha, Alexander ben Marsha, and Shaul ben Farzane, and all of the wonderful people that continue to contribute their time, their money, their efforts to help us continue growing as an organization. Bezrat Hashem is growing rapidly, Baruch Hashem, as I told you recently, in the last month, or in the month of May, in the secular calendar or the Gregorian calendar. Just our YouTube channels reached a little over 19 million minutes of Torah being watched, being learned, Baruch Hashem, which is unbelievable. What we celebrated around this time last year, reaching about 5 million minutes of Torah learned per month. Baruch Hashem, we're doing about 4 times that today. Ishtabach Shemo La'ad. And what shows us that there's much more than what perhaps would look, enticing and attractive to most people, like such as things as like views. It's really more important of how much Torah we're actually learning. And when you have almost 20 million minutes in Torah in 1 month, Baruch Hashem, you see that you're going in the right direction and reaching more and more people. Now, tonight's shiur is going to be a interesting one. We've talked about the topic of Shabbat many times over the years, but perhaps we have not spent as much effort talking about some more specifics, such as the mitzvah of ONEG Shabbat. There is the observance of Shabbat, which means that you're not allowed to drive a car on Shabbat, you're not allowed to work on Shabbat. There's 39 restrictions that we learned from the Torah itself, that things that are forbidden to do on Shabbat, and these 39 things, what they're called melachot, are specific activities that were used to build the Bet HaMikdash, to build the Mishkan, and in essence, so everything that was used to build the home of Hashem, the physical home of Hashem on this planet, are the very same exact things that Hashem forbids us from doing on Shabbat, meaning that Shabbat is so holy that even to build a Bet HaMikdash, we're forbidden from doing. So that's one particular thing that's in the 10 commandments. It's the 4th commandment. We have the first 3 talking about how Hashem, being the only God, don't use His name in vain, such like how Christians use it, where they spell out Hashem's name everywhere and write at least what they think is the way to pronounce it. This is a way of saying Hashem's name in vain, which makes a person lose their eternity. Needless to say, also saying bracha levatala, which is a blessing that's the wrong blessing, or a blessing for no reason, and in some cases even saying amen to inappropriately is a sin in itself. Such as, for example, when a mechalel Shabbat, someone that desecrates Shabbat on a regular basis, not like a one-time accident, but someone that desecrates Shabbat on a regular basis. Rav Tzion Abba Shaul, which was the chavruta of Rav Ovadia and one of the Gedolei Ador, writes in his sefer that someone that mechalel Shabbat is a person that you're not allowed to say amen to his kaddish, to his blessings. is simply not allowed, because this is somebody that's, according to the Torah, considered a idol worshiper. So here we see that the issue of Shabbat observance is critical, and it's right next to and in line with the importance of Hashem being the only God, not saying Hashem's name in vain, and obviously, needless to say, idolatry, the prohibition of idolatry, which actually you'll see something very interesting, that each time Shabbat is mentioned and the punishment of the Shabbat desecrators is mentioned in the Torah 12 times, next to it you're always going to see the same language being used for idol worshippers. Hence the reason why many of the Chachamim, when they talk about desecration of Shabbat and the punishment and things of that nature, they also talk about how it's the equivalent of idol worship, where the Rambam in Ilchot Shabbat, chapter 30, the last halacha, writes that a person, a Jew, that desecrates the Shabbat is considered 100% an idol worshiper. No different than someone that prays to a statue, no different than someone that prays to a person, and so on and so forth. Which means that although we don't have a Sanhedrin, we're not allowed to kill such a person. If the Sanhedrin was there and there was evidence and there was two witnesses that saw the person desecrating Shabbat, warned them about their Shabbat desecration, and they still continued to drive on Shabbat, they would get the worst death penalty in the world. They would get stoning. So here we see that the whole issue of Shabbat is a very, very big deal in Judaism. But unfortunately, many times you'll see that perhaps a person is religious enough not to make the more obvious sins, such as driving on Shabbat or smoking cigarettes on Shabbat and cooking and things of that nature. But with the other part of Shabbat, the mitzvah of Shabbat, they'll, many times we've all been there. Perhaps the Shabbat is not going to be honored the way it's supposed to, which is really a desecration of the oneg of Shabbat, the enjoyment of Shabbat. And of course, sometimes a person can say, listen, I have so many problems that it's hard for me to enjoy Shabbat. There's shlom bayit problems, there's financial problems, there's this and that. Now, this is some of the things that the Gaon Mivilna is fitting into this letter, which is really amazing how much Torah the Gaon Mivilna and the Chachamim always managed to fit into every single thing that they said. It's truly unbelievable because, on one end you have, people that are the tzaddikim, the chachamim, that, every single conversation that they have, every single time they're mentioned or quoted by anybody, even on their personal relationships and conversations, you're constantly going to see words of wisdom, words of the Torah, and each word calculated before it's spewed out. On the other hand, you have, unfortunately, many fools, many ignoramuses, many heretics, where you wish they were more stingy on their words. You wish that they spoke less, because the more they speak, the more they spew venom that is hurting the public, such as these two clowns we've been talking about recently, whether Moshe Otero or his boss Asher Meza, where they're constantly now, instead of realizing and admitting guilt that they were caught lying, they made up stories. They about us charging for conversions and $10,000.
It's at least $10,000. 10,000.
The 10,000 levels.
10,000.
10,000.
$10,000.
$10,000.
10,000 to $20,000.
$10,000.
$10,000
Or any amount of money for that matter. Instead of admitting guilt, instead of admitting that they did the wrong thing, that they spread rumors, they're false rumors to say the least, instead of saying, okay, we made a mistake, apologizing for it, moving on with their life, or better yet, not even apologizing, just shutting their mouth, what do? They make even more videos and create even more fake rumors, even more nonsense that they're making. Now the new thing that they're saying is that, no, maybe you had, they have this new story that they heard from the families that there is three families that we converted here in South Florida, where because they could not afford to pay for the conversion, I took their conversion paperwork and refused to give it to them.
There's I believe three families he converted here in South Florida that at the end of the day couldn't afford the conversion, and he refused to give them the certificates.
Who's he? Who's he? The Beit Din or Yaron?
Yaron.
Okay.
So this you know for a fact? You
No.
told them?
No, okay. Well, yes, people told me about the story. You know,
Wait, so Yaron gives the certificate? I thought the Beit Din the.
I don't know the insides of the story. You know, so I'm just telling you what I heard from reputable people. That's it. Now, on that basis, and by the simple fact that I'm not saying it's a fact, I'm just telling you that this is what I heard.
I mean, such obnoxiousness, such filth, such vile falsehood. Literally, we're willing to pay $1 billion for any evidence of this nonsense. Anything. I'll go work for them for the rest of my life like a slave if they could give me an ounce of evidence that anything that they're saying about this is true. It's the type of stupidity that comes out of these people. They simply can't control themselves, because once a person lies, they can't help themselves and build on that lie lest they be exposed as a liar. So they build on it, they build on a lie, they create more stories. Now we're withholding people's conversion documents for 2 or 3 years because they want to leave our synagogue. Clearly showing these idiots have not even done a little bit of research to know we don't even have a synagogue. That's one of the things we're trying to do, but we don't have a synagogue. How could I stop somebody from leaving my synagogue that doesn't exist? But they're going to say it publicly, proudly, without any second guessing, without any thoughts, nothing, just like empty minds speaking. Like, you know, you have like these toys when you were a little kid. I don't know if they still have them today. You have these toys where you pull the string and a thing like talks and says different things. It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing. It's just like as soon as these people, like they have a camera on, they cannot help themselves but lie.
My issue with you is not so much the conversion amount of money you charge or you make out of them, be it $1,000 or $2,000, and even if you hold their certificate of conversion to extended periods of 2 to 3 years to make sure they don't leave your shul. We know that trick as well, but that's not the point. I'm glad you're involved in conversion and you're helping bring more Jews that are out there in, even though at a very hefty amount. Now, I'm sure people out there who have gone through your program will probably speak up, and I welcome people to let people know, let the truth be known, because I'm all about let the truth be known, not this this gimmick of I'll give you $400,000 if you can bring up and show a check. Come on, Yaron. We know how the conversion business is all about and how it works. My gosh, I used to work with Rabbi Lehrfield. I know how it's done. I know how rabbis like yourself will come and speak to the Beit Din and get the kickbacks and get all of the goodies under the hand, as it were, and then say, oh, I'm not making any money. Come on, I know the tricks. I know the trade. I know what you've gone through. This is why I have gone and said, you know what? We've got to help to gear them without making a penny. Now, good for you. You may have a big donor, someone that's underwriting these conversions. And if that's the case, that should go to you. But I still get calls from people complaining of the 10,000 levels, of the $2,000 level. You know, there's different levels. You're willing to negotiate. You're like a used car salesman. I can't get 10,000, I'll get 5,000. Can't get 5,000, I'll get 2,000. Can't get 2,000, give me $1,000. I'll prolong your conversion and I'll hold to the papers. Now tell me you didn't do that.
And it's unbelievable. And again, we mention it and mention it again in order to warn the public from liars. Not because of any other reason. There's no fame coming out of this. There's no money coming out of this. In fact, we're offering money to anyone that could provide this evidence of these 3 poor families that we stopped them from getting their conversion paperwork. It's like, seriously. Or better yet, they're not really sure. Wait, so maybe he doesn't get the money from the Beit Din. Maybe he gets it in a different way. Maybe he charges for a course.
When I just stated information that I was told by many other people that his program charges at least $10,000 per person. Whether he keeps the money or the court does, I don't care. But for this, the sensitive little giant is going to get all his feathers ruffled, right? And that number is nothing new. 10,000 is a going rate
for most of these online rabbis. And yes, local courts, when you live in a community, would charge you perhaps up to $2,000. But for this online program, or these type of online programs, this is the standard, 10,000.
What course? What course, Ribono Shel Olam? What course are you talking about? So let me, maybe if we speak to them in kindergarten language, perhaps they'll understand. There is no course. The only teaching that we do are these lectures that you see live 3 times a week. Okay? There is no private course. There is no charge for any course. There never was. There's no membership fee either. Not for the course or for anything else. Never was. We also do not charge for conversion at all. We guide people to convert. We sponsor people to convert. We bring them to the Beit Din. We've used the Beit Din in Florida. We've used the Beit Din in New York. We've used Beit Dins in Israel. All recognized Beit Dins by the Rabbanut. We have never charged a single penny, nor have we ever received any kickbacks whatsoever from any party for helping somebody convert or writing them a letter of support or any other thing that we've done for them. Never ever. Okay, just so people understand. Now, in addition to that, if somebody can provide evidence of the contrary, the offer stands for them 50,000, 50 million, 50 zillion, whatever number you have. We could simply say any amount because none of this stuff exists. If I had an ounce of lies in me, I wouldn't offer any money. I'd just keep my mouth shut, crawl in a little hole that they really belong in, and simply move on with my life. But nonetheless, here you have vile falsehoods continuing to be spewed. And if that's not enough, Rabotai, you're never going to believe this. You're never going to believe this. If I didn't bring this to you, I don't think you would believe me, honestly. You're going to see this tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, we put this on YouTube. But we're going to add the clip to it. You're never going to believe this, Rabotai. So, Meza, this apikoros, this tzarat of the nation, this person claims that he got a smicha from 2 rabbis. One is a Rabbi Seidel in Eretz Yisrael, who's really more of a kiruv personality, not like an administrator from what I hear. I don't know him personally, not exactly a rabbi that gives smichas, but nonetheless, he got a smicha from him, I don't know, many years ago. But he got a second smicha, meaning another rabbi gave a support for the original smicha of some clown by the name of Klakowski.
The smicha that I gave to my friend Rabbi Meza, and I appreciate that Mordechai here calls him Rabbi on that account. I want to note one thing first. Rabbi Meza had smicha before he knew me. Why would I give smicha? My smicha, it really isn't worth anything. I'll be honest. I'm just a regular guy. Happen to be a rabbi in a shul, had smicha, whatever. My smicha really isn't worth that much. You know, you're not going to be able to join the RCA with my smicha. You're probably not going to get a patur from the Israeli army if you make aliyah. I'll admit that I'm a Russia and I have a lot of problems in my life. So, but to say I'm not a rabbi, I don't know. I mean, rabbi is an English word. You know, you want to say I'm not a rebbe, I'm not a ruv, I'm not a rabbi. Conservative reform, you can also spell Reish Aleph Beis Yud. I'm at least like them. You know, I work as a rabbi. That's what I do professionally.
Now this idiot I call him an idiot, not because he gave a smicha to Meza. That I know from actually reading documents showing him and hearing him say things over the years, where he simply did it because Meza gave him a job when nobody else did. So the guy has, unfortunately, no emunah whatsoever. But that's not what makes him an idiot. What makes him an idiot is that he literally records his thoughts in his life in his car, just like the other 2 guys. I mean, I don't know why these people can't speak out of a room. You want me to lend you my room, guys? You want to lend my office? Maybe you guys want to get you an office? I'll send you a few $100. Guys rent an office maybe, or a house or something. I don't know, for some reason they're always doing videos in their cars. Like perhaps maybe even their wives don't want to hear their nonsense. But nonetheless, this guy records himself on the way to whatever job he has. I think he works at some jail. Maybe he should bring his friends there and stay there. But anyway, he records himself and he says his thoughts. And once in a while he speaks against me. Once in a while he speaks against Rabbi Mizrahi or anyone that disagrees with their agenda. And he's always supportive of Meza.
I'm talking about Auschwitz. Never heard of Fly as a voyeur. He's a fine person. I don't understand why people hate him so much.
Now, he made a video saying that he goes to these festival that showcases scary movies on Shabbat. He goes with he went to some festival recently on Shabbat. He went, and this is a rabbi that gave the smicha to Meza. On Shabbat, he went to go and actually and with his family and to watch the scary movie festival or something like that.
Good evening, everybody. I'm on my way home from Monster Bash Under the Stars, which was in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania. We enjoyed ourselves, had a nice Shabbos, davened. I wore my Streimel and my Bekisha there at the campsite most of the day until it got too hot. Changed back into a t-shirt, but kept my Shabbos pants on and took a nap and enjoyed. And we walked around a little bit in the drive-in talking to people who were also camped out there enjoying themselves at the Monster Bash program, including what we showed on the video, Chris Yeworth, and we talked about the blob. And we had some lawn chairs and a little table, and we sat and we had kiddush, and we brought some amazing meals, so we were able to have cholent and kugel.
And another time, there was on Shabbat, the TV stayed on, and he watches the TV on Shabbat. He says this. On Shabbat, the guy that gave the smicha to Asher Meza watched TV on Shabbat, and if that's not bad enough, he says, what, you think that Mizrahi and Yaron Reuven don't watch TV on Shabbat?
I admit, like my Rosh Yeshiva always says, it's not the right thing to do, to sit and watch a movie on Shabbos. But sof kol sof, I wasn't manipulating the projector. I was there, so there's two ways to look at it. Yes, either Katina Zaya Groisa Afla is kicked off a movie. You think, to be honest, you think Yossi Mizrahi doesn't watch movies on Shabbos? You don't think he leaves the TV on? I can tell you worse things about Yossi Mizrahi, but it's none of your business. You think Yaron Reuven doesn't leave the TV on before Shabbos? I'm sure he does. He probably has a room somewhere, he leaves it on. The difference is I'm honest about it, and I'm not trying to hide who I am. So, yeah, maybe it's not the right thing to do. But I'm not, and the truth is I didn't wear white socks. I got Pepperhoisen that are long and was wearing Crocs, but still with a Strammel in the Bekisha, one of the light Bekishes.
Ribono shel olam, if the ground that swallowed Korach would be allowed to swallow these people, would be a favor to the world. I mean, the first you are desecrating Hashem's name by admitting you're desecrating the ONEG of Shabbat. You're desecrating the ONEG of Shabbat. But if that's not bad enough, now you're actually accusing two other people without knowing it. Now I understand why the Talmud, Meza, i.e. the boss also, that gave him a job years ago, why he also desecrates Hashem's name on a regular basis and simply makes up stories. They just make up stories. 3 families that we converted didn't get their paperwork. We charged $10,000.
At least $10,000. 10,000.
The 10,000 levels.
10,000.
10,000.
$10,000.
For $10,000, $10,000 to $20,000.
$10,000.
$10,000 a
$20,000. There is a membership fee for some fictional program that we have. It's like unbelievable. You hear this stuff and your head wants to explode, because where do they come up with this stuff, and why have they not responded with evidence? I mean, there's a lot of money on the table here. But yet, the people that listen to them, instead of saying, listen, I'll go do the work for you. Just tell me where to find the evidence. We'll split the profits. Nobody even cares. They continue living the lie, continue lying even further, and it's just unbelievable. Now, when I told this to my Rav says, listen, there's a verse written about such people. Where is it? It's in Tehillim. In Psalm number 12, chapter 12, verse number 4. Yichrat Adonai kol siftei chalakot lashon midvarot gdolot. That may Hashem excise, meaning cut off the lips of the smooth talkers, the tongue which speaks boastfully. He says this is simply a verse for people like that just arrogantly lie and make up things in order to serve their own agenda. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure what the agenda is anymore, other than utter stupidity. But needless to say, this is one of the things that I am sure they have discussed on Shabbat. This is the type of stuff that people do discuss even on Shabbat, where they make up rumors, they make up lies, because they don't realize that even speaking needs to be controlled on Shabbat. Even speaking, needless to say, falsehood has to be controlled at all times. But here we see that you have many people spewing venom out of their mouths and simply do not know how to take it back. It's like a bullet. Once you fire it, there's no taking it back. There's no taking it back. And instead of retracting, instead of apologizing, instead of just simply shutting up, what do? They continue firing bullets. They continue firing bullets, which is unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable, but you'll see this many times. We've seen the same thing from other Reshaim, whether it's Manis Friedman, when we made videos about him. Instead of the guy calming down with his heretical thoughts and philosophical falsehoods that he teaches the public, what did he do? He started making worse lectures. So we start thinking to ourselves, wait a minute, maybe it's better off that we stay quiet, and because these people get worse when we talk about them. But obviously I talk to my Rav and we talk to other Gdolim, and they always say, listen, what people do is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to warn the people that are looking for the truth. Warn the people that are looking for the emet. Warn people that are, unfortunately, victims to these criminals. Because those people deserve to at least have somebody scream foul, so so they can say, oh, you know what? My gut feeling that these people are bad has been right. Now, Baruch Hashem, countless people have told me over the years that they knew something was wrong, they knew something was stinky, they just didn't realize it was coming from the screen that they were watching, from all of these heretical speakers that we've brought over the years. And that's the reason why we bring it again. But again, this one is like a new thing. This Mesa and Otero situation, and now this other third clown that his name escapes me right now, that starts with a K, Klakowski. It's really unbelievable. The guy is desecrating the ONEG of Shabbat. The guy is desecrating Hashem's name. He goes and he publicly says that he watches movies, he watches TV, he goes to, he's hanging out with Christians at movie festivals as a rabbi on Shabbat, and yet he has the audacity to blame us for doing the same thing. Like, just because he's playing with manure as a hobby, that means that we're doing the same thing. And he does this publicly. It's really unbelievable that such people actually exist. It's unbelievable. Somebody told me earlier, asked me, listen, Rabbi, can we pray for such people to die? I said, you already do. If you pray Amidah 3 times a day, you actually talk against people like this. 3 times a day you pray to Hashem, either to get them to do tshuva or to die, whichever one comes first. Whichever one comes first, either to do tshuva or die, whichever one comes first. Oh, the best yet I heard is that for some reason, Mesa believes that we used to be friends. We used to talk to each other on the phone many times. He called me one time in his life, then he visited me in my lectures twice, and that how somehow we were friends and we used to call each other. Those 3 instances that we've ever discussed anything, and I think there was a couple of messages on Facebook, that made us friends. We used to be boys. Honestly, I'm starting to think maybe we should start a campaign to perhaps raise enough funds to pay for the doctors to help these people. It's really bizarre, like just illusions. But again, anyone that can provide evidence, we are happy to publicize it, to pay for it, cash. Please, we would love to see that information of these poor families, of these 3 families from South Florida or any place, of some course that we charge any money from. We don't charge any money. We never charged any money. The Bet Din charges money, but the Bet Din that I've dealt with has never charged anybody more than $2,000 for conversion. But generally speaking, we're able to get it for less, much less in some cases. Just because we bring the Bet Din a lot of converts, and Baruch Hashem, they do our converts a favor, especially if there's multiple people and so on. The point is, Rabotai, is that these people seem to not understand English. And maybe I'll get perhaps one of our team members from the Portuguese and the Spanish and some of the other languages, German, Russian, Hebrew. Maybe they'll translate this lecture and perhaps put subtitles on it, and somebody can go and read it to them. I'm not really sure what to do anymore, but it's important to bring this stuff out because, again, this vomit continues to come out, and no one understands where did you get this stuff from? Which garbage pail did you get this from? Did you actually make all these crimes and are blaming me for it? Is that just like we used to be friends in your imagination? You're also the one that actually made all these crimes against society, but yet you're blaming me? That's the only thing I could come up with at this point. But here the Gaon Mivilna is going to go into something much more critical, something that affects all of us, and not just a few idiots among our people, unfortunately, but rather all of us, each and every single one of us, yours truly as well as you, when it comes to the issues of ONEG Shabbat. ONEG Shabbat, Rabotai Yekarim, is a critical mitzvah. ONEG Shabbat is having delight in Shabbat, to having the joy of Shabbat. And the Gaon Mivilna, who was a person that literally toiled over Torah for 20 hours plus a day, where he would not sleep for more than 2 hours, and even his 2 hours, he would split it to 30-minute increments. So somebody that lived a life of righteousness to the highest extent, and we're not talking about somebody that lived 2,000 years ago. We're talking about a couple of 100 years ago. Somebody like this was among us. Rav Nissim again, alav Shalom, used to say in his lectures that he met his grandkids. He met the Gaon Mivilna's grandkids. So we're not talking about something that was that long ago. But yet, this is a person that was toiling in Torah and understood the Torah better than any of us can ever understand it. And here he's talking to his family, he's talking to his tzadikah wife, he's talking to his dear mother, the tzadikah, he's talking to his children, he's talking to us. And after telling us that we have to be careful with all the words that come out of our mouth, where even baseless speech can land a person into kafakela, here he's now talking about this type of speech that's not even baseless. Any speech discussed on Shabbat, uttered on Shabbat. And he says the following, Ube Shabbat v'yom tov, al tedabru klal midvarim she'enam nitzrechim meod, וגם בדברים הנצרכים למאוד תקצרו מאוד, כי קדושת שבת גדולה מאוד, ובקושי התירו לומר שלום בשבת. ראה בדיבור אחד כמה החמירו. Translation. On Shabbat and Yom Tov, do not speak at all about matters that are not absolutely necessary, and be brief even with what is important. For the holiness of Shabbat is exceedingly great, to the extent where it was difficult for our sages to permit the exchange of a greeting on Shabbat. Realize how strict they were concerning every single expression. So here we see, Rabotai, that the Gaon Mivilna is throwing an atomic bomb on us. Why? Because he's talking to us. He's telling us here something that perhaps, I don't know about you, but I know myself at times would take for granted. Why? You work all week, whatever it is that you do, whether you build houses, or you help people, or you sell stocks, or you clean sewers, whatever it is that you do for a living. You work your whole week. Finally, you get to Shabbat, you rest, you eat, and you socialize. You want to talk, whether it's to family members, friends, whoever it is. You want to talk. What do you want to talk about? Anything. Anything you want to talk about. Gaon Vilna says, no, Habibi. You can't just talk about anything. You can't just talk about anything. You have to be careful. Why? It's Shabbat. So what if it isn't Shabbat just a day that I could just chill out, relax, calm down, do whatever I want? I'll learn a few hours, but can't I just do whatever else I want? Gaon Vilna says, not exactly. Even your speech has to take Shabbat into consideration. And obviously, on Yom Tov as well, whether it's Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Shavuot, Pesach, and so on. During these Yomim Tovim, or Shabbat, which the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says, and the Zohar also says, that Shabbat is holier than all of the holidays. So here we see that you have to take your speech into consideration. Very careful consideration. And in so many words, he's telling you, be stingy with your words. Be stingy with your words. You know, sometimes people are stingy, but they're stingy not with their words. They're stingy with other things. Sometimes you wish they were stingy with the words. Like these few clowns that we're talking about, we wish they were not only stingy, we wish they were completely like someone that wouldn't talk at all. They were mute. But nonetheless, sometimes people are stingy with words. There was one time a stingy guy who had to report in the obituary section of the newspaper that his father died. So he calls the newspaper and he says, oh, I need to report that my father died. They said, okay, listen, the first 5 words is $100. And after that, it's $50 a word. Ooh, wow, $50 a word. $100 for the first 5 words? It's like, listen, sir, that's the minimum, but since you're a first-time customer, we'll give it you $50 for the first 5 words. And after that, $50 for every word. So for word number 6 is another 50, number 7, and so on and so forth. So the guy is thinking to himself, okay, well, to say my father, Shmulik, Ben such and such, died on such and such date, no one really needs to know all this stuff. First of all, why does everybody care if he's my father? They don't really need to know. Second of all, why would they care when he died? He already died. They can't fix it. They can't go back and save him. So why do they care? And the fact that he was righteous or when he was born, all that, it really doesn't really matter. So what does he do? He writes, Shmulik died. Oh, okay. Fine. But you still have 3 words. Oh, what, you're not going to give me a discount to the $50? No, sir. 5 words is minimum. Oh, okay. So you want us to just have the 2 words? He goes, no, that's a big waste. Put Shmuli died, white Subaru, sale. This, Rabotai, as funny as it is, every time I hear my Rav tell me it, I laugh. But nonetheless, it's real. Some people are so stingy, they would even change the obituary of their parents. Some people are so stingy, they would literally not want to go to the bathroom so they don't have to eat again. Some people are that stingy. The Gaon Vilna is telling us, yes, you need to be stingy, but not with money. With your words on Shabbat. Of course, with your words during the rest of the week too. But with Shabbat, it carries a different weight. It carries a different weight. Why does it carry a different weight? Because the holiness of Shabbat, the Gaon Vilna says, is so extraordinary that it was difficult for the sages to allow us to say shalom on Shabbat. You know how you say Shabbat shalom? The sages had to debate it whether it's allowed to say Shabbat shalom or really you could just say nothing and not utter a word that's really desecrating the honor of Shabbat. Where's the source from it? One of the sources that he's quoting here is the Gemara in Yerushalmi Masechet Shabbat in chapter 15, halacha number 3, where it says, only after dochak, meaning only with great difficulty, did the sages permit to say Shabbat Shalom. So much so that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his mom was a big tzadikah. one time he saw his mom speaking. She's not speaking heresy. She's not speaking about work, but speaking. You know, the Gemara says 10 levels of speaking were given to the world. 9 were given to the women, 1 to the men. Women like to speak. Now, his mom's a big tzadikah, and she was talking. And Rabbi Shimon says to his mother, Ima, Shabbat, meaning today's Shabbat. And his mother, was smart enough and tzadikah enough to understand, oh, I'm talking too much. Talking too much, this is not kavod, it's not honor of the Shabbat. This is not a way to delight the Shabbat, talking about mundane things. If you're going to talk about divrei Torah, you can talk from here until next Shabbat. You can talk as much as you want divrei Torah. But if it's talking about just other types of things, you have to control it. How much do you have to control it? Now, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, in the Talmud Bavli, page 113a, says a few things about Shabbat, about ONEG Shabbat, and the kavod of Shabbat, and so on. So here, it brings a verse as an asmachta, meaning a further support, from the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, verse 13, that says, if you restrain because of the Shabbat, your feet from performing your affairs on my holy day, and you proclaim Shabbat a delight, the Holy One of Hashem, honored one, and you honor it by not doing your ways, from seeking your wants and speaking words, then you shall delight with Hashem. So if you're familiar with this language, I'll even read it for you in the Hebrew context, because you read it in your Kiddush every Shabbat morning. Every Shabbat morning, you read it, where it says, Shabbat Kiddush, Im tashiv mi Shabbat raglecha, esot chafatzecha biyom kachi, vekarata leshabbat oneg, likdosh Adonai mechubad, וכיבדתו מעשות דרכיך, ממצוא חפציך ודבר דבר, אז תתענג על אדוני, והרכבתיך על במתי ארץ, ואכלתיך נחלת יעקב אביך, כי פי אדוני דיבר. So because this is a verse from the Tanakh, you're allowed to say Hashem's name, because in essence you're reading a verse from the Torah. Now, and some actually, like the Ben Ish Chai says that if you don't say Hashem's name, when you're reading a verse from the Torah, it's really not kavod for the Torah. So you have to say Hashem's name. But here you see that you have a verse in the Tanakh, in the book of Isaiah, that anyone that believes the Tanakh should have read at some point or another. Us Jews read it every single Shabbat. That is a clear instructions from HaKadosh Baruch Hu about ONEG Shabbat, the delight of Shabbat, which involves not just the food that you eat and the clothes that you wear, but even the words that you say. Even the words that you say. Where he's telling you that if you refrain from pursuing your affairs and not speaking of them, meaning not speaking about work, not talking about mundane things, that is the ONEG of Shabbat. That is the ONEG of Shabbat. My dear Rav Ephraim, he has a custom in his house. He has, I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, if you haven't spent Shabbat with Rav Ephraim once in your life, you haven't spent Shabbat. The Shabbat at Rav Ephraim's house is a different Shabbat. He's known for his Shabbats. Not everybody, obviously, can just go there. But nonetheless, when I first went to Israel the first time to see him, everyone told me, have you spent Shabbat with Rav Ephraim yet? I said, no, not yet. They said, once you see Shabbat with Rav Ephraim, then you'll understand what Shabbat is. And I thought to myself, what's such a big deal about Shabbat, at Rav Ephraim's house? I mean, okay, I've been at other people's houses at Shabbat. I've had Shabbat on my own. There's good food, there's a little learning, there's this and that. What's the big deal? So many words. The Shabbat at Rav Ephraim's house is something else. It's just something out of this world. Now, he has a minhag in his house. He has a custom in his house. What's the custom in his house? Custom number 1. During this particular prayer, he teaches his little kids, all the kids in the house, Baruch Hashem, all little, and he teaches them about ONEG Shabbat, where he says, when he reads the morning Kiddush, where it says, Im tashib mi Shabbat raglecha yesod chavtzecha biyom kachi v'kerata leShabbat, and he stops, and everyone has to say, ONEG, meaning delight. So everyone already understands that Shabbat and delight, that goes together. Everybody says together, ONEG. This is one of the customs as for the chinuch of the children in his house. And it's a fantastic thing to do, to teach your kids that Shabbat is not a time where there is limitations and you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this. If you only teach your kids about what they're not allowed to do, they're not allowed to watch this, they're not allowed to look at this, they're not allowed to breathe, not allowed, not allowed, not allowed, what ends up happening is that your kids are going to hate Shabbat one day because they say nothing's allowed. Instead, you have to teach them what is also allowed. And in fact, what is only allowed on Shabbat and what is unique about Shabbat. And that's why the second minhag that we learned from Rabbi Ephraim is that you have to prepare for Shabbat like Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. How do you prepare for Shabbat like Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel? You already start preparing for Shabbat on Motzei Shabbat, meaning as soon as Shabbat ended, you already think about next Shabbat. How do you think about next Shabbat? Simple. Everything that you are going to get during that week. You're going to buy something, whether it's a special type of food, or clothing, or a toy, or whatever it is, save it for Shabbat. Save it for Shabbat. Or if it's Yom Tov, save it for Yom Tov. That's when you want to use this special food or special clothes or special toy or whatever it is. All the best things, Shabbat is the day. That is one of the ways to not only have ONEG Shabbat and make Shabbat truly unique from the rest of the week, because you know all your presents, all your best, all your good is going to be on Shabbat itself. But aside from that, you also teach your kids the same. You teach your kids the same. Oh, this new shirt that we got you? What do you want? You want to wear it now? No. I want to wear it for Shabbat. Why? Because Shabbat is the day to start with this shirt. Shabbat is the day. This is a Shabbat shirt. This is a Shabbat shirt. This is Shabbat pants. This is Shabbat shoes, and so on and so forth. And the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, page 113a, says that one of the things that is required for the sake of ONEG Shabbat is to have different clothes for Shabbat. Meaning that a person should not wear the same clothes they wear during the week on Shabbat. They should have a different pair of shoes, different suit, different everything that they only wear on Shabbat. Now, of course, if finances allow, a person should have all these things. If a person is homeless, this limitation is discussed as well, and they're not obligated to do the same thing. And this is actually one of the tshuvot, one of the responsa answers that Rabbi Ephraim answers in his series Achtov L'Yisrael, the halachic ramifications, if there are any, if somebody cannot really have ONEG Shabbat as far as having a different suit and a different shoes and different types of delights on Shabbat because they're poor. Now that's a different situation, and there's no problem there if they're poor. But if somebody does have the ability that they can get a different suit that they could just wear on Shabbat, different shoes just to wear on Shabbat, then they need to do that. They need to do it. They're obligated to do it. Now, somebody can say, yeah, well, I have these special shoes. I wear them to all the special events. I wear them to the special weddings. I wear them to a special bar mitzvah. I wear them to a special meeting with a big client. No, that's not the same thing. That's just fancy shoes or fancy belt or fancy this or fancy that. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about something that's unique, only used for Shabbat and Yom Tov. That's it. Your business meetings, meet with the richest client in the world, biggest prospect in history, is zero next to Shabbat, any Shabbat. And a person needs to take this as part of their life, to have special clothes that they wear only on Shabbat. Only on Shabbat. Now Rabbi Ephraim says, sometimes the kids get a toy, and they say, oh, I'm not going to start playing with this toy until Shabbat. Now, of course, after Shabbat is finished, they continue playing with the toy the rest of the week. But to get, and the first time to use this toy, we have to do it on Shabbat. This shirt, I'm going to wear it more than just Shabbat. I'm not going to have everything only for Shabbat. Some clothes are only for Shabbat. Some clothes I'll use at other times. But the first time I'll wear it, if it's fancy and beautiful and so on, I'll wear it on Shabbat. So the kids learn from here to sanctify Shabbat, to have delight on Shabbat. But he says, what happens if there's a toy that they just got that week, okay? But it's on Shabbat it would be muktzeh. Why? Because it has batteries and it has some type of electric and so on. You're not allowed to use those toys on Shabbat. So what do? He says, the kids have a clever idea. What? We're going to play with this toy before Shabbat in the honor of Shabbat. This is the clever tzaddikim. That's what they do. They play with the new toy that you're not allowed to play on Shabbat. But we're going to play with this toy before Shabbat in the honor of Shabbat. This is the mind of a tzaddik. This is the mind of a tzaddikah. That's the mind of little kids that are holy, that understand how important Shabbat is. Not just to not drive and smoke cigarettes and light fires, which is the obvious, but rather how Shabbat is Judaism. Without Shabbat, there is no Judaism. And that's one of the things that a lot of people simply do not understand. Where they say, no, I'm just as Jewish as the rabbi, even though I drive on Shabbat and I work on Shabbat, because I believe in God in my heart. There's nothing further from the truth. Because the reality is, if you do not observe Shabbat, that means you don't even know, not only you don't know what Shabbat is, you don't know what being a Jew is. Being a Jew doesn't mean that just because you like to eat falafel and shawarma, that makes you a Jew. Arabs like falafel and shawarma also. And they also like to throw missiles at Jews and kill them and terrorize them their whole life. Eating shawarma and drinking Turkish coffee doesn't make you a Jew. What makes a person a Jew is to know what a Jew is. And a Jew is someone that's glued to the Torah. A Jew is someone that doesn't go right or left against the Torah. That's what a Jew is. Now here, we see, Rabotai, that the Gaon Mivilna is telling this to who? He's not telling this to a bunch of secular kids. He's not telling this to new Baalei Tshuva. He's telling this as a reminder to his own frum tzaddikim family. Hence, the teaching here applies to each and every single one of us, no matter where we are and where we started. Because ONEG Shabbat is an obligation on all of Klal Yisrael. All of Klal Yisrael. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. Now, sometimes a person is going to have difficulty having ONEG Shabbat, where all of the difficulties of the week will happen and so on and so forth. Now, the Admo mi Sochochov, in his Sefer, Shem Mishmuel, in Parashat Noach, he actually writes something extraordinary, where he says, this is about 150 years ago or so, he says that someone who does not protect their brit, someone who does not protect their brit, cannot have ONEG Shabbat. Someone that wastes seed can never have ONEG Shabbat. Can never have the joy, true delight and joy of Shabbat. Whereas someone who honors Shabbat will have the strength to protect their brit. Why? He says it's measure for measure. If you are not going to protect your brit milah, you're not going to protect that, surely you're not going to know what to do with the other brit. If you don't know how to treat one brit kodesh the right way, one brit kodesh as something that's holy, you will not know how to treat the other brit kodesh. So here you see sometimes a person will say, listen, I've been keeping Shabbat my whole life, but I don't know, I can't stand it. It's always difficult, there's always problems, there's always fighting, and always so on. First thing I would always tell people, check your brit. Are you really watching your eyes? Are you watching your mouth? Are you watching your brit? Are you doing all of these different things that are required in order to have legitimate holiness in your body, physical body, in your neshama? Or you operate like the goyim. You operate like the heretics. You operate like some of the people on Mese's videos that show pornography in the middle of a video. Are you operating like that? If you are, and you make fun of Tikkun HaBrit, and you make fun of the issues of Kedusha, then of course you're not going to have ONEG Shabbat. Of course you're not, because you don't know how to treat the Brit. How are you going to know? Because the Brit of the Brit Milah is one Brit. The Tefillin is also a Brit, and Shabbat is another Brit. There's three Brit, three covenants that we have from Hashem in the Torah. The Brit Milah, which is not just the Brit Milah that you did at 8 days old without anyone asking for your permission, but the Brit Milah that you actually have your whole life, and how you protect your Brit, not waste seed and so on. Second thing is the Brit of Shabbat, and the third is the Brit of Tefillin. And every single day you have to have at least two being fulfilled, or you have to have two being fulfilled, I should say. Two, during the week, you have to protect your Brit, and you have to put on Tefillin. On Shabbat, you're not allowed to put on Tefillin, so you have to have the Brit of Shabbat, and you have the Brit of the Brit Milah. Meaning that the Brit Milah is all year round, all day, all night, and the only change is the Brit of Shabbat with the Brit of Tefillin once a week, or during the holidays, Yom Tov, you don't put on Tefillin. But nonetheless, Rabotai Yekarim, you see here that if a person does not connect all of the mitzvot to realize they're all one Torah, everything is interconnected, just like a nervous system. Simply a person cannot even understand what we're talking about here for a half hour in regards to ONEG Shabbat. Like, what ONEG? On Shabbat, all I can think about is work on Monday. On Shabbat, all I can think about is different things. So now, the Gemara here in Masechet Shabbat, page 113a, says a few things. So it says, you honor the Shabbat means that your Shabbat garment should not be like your weekday garments. Like we just talked about, you shouldn't have the same clothes for Shabbat as you do the rest of the week. Where sometimes a person is going to spend a fortune on his weekday clothes. He wants to look spiff for his next meeting, so he gets a fancy shoes for $300-400, loafers. He has a suit that matches perfectly the shirt, and the tie matches the shoelaces, and the glasses matches the belt, and everybody matches. But you see him on Shabbat, you say Shabbat Shalom, and he's in slippers, shorts, and a tank top. Hey, Shabbat Shalom! That's Shabbat Shalom. That's how you welcome a queen. That's how you welcome the Kala of Shabbat, the bride of Shabbat. That's how you welcome her, with shorts and a tank top and slippers. That's during the week to go meet some Joe Smith that has a few dollars that could potentially be a customer. You wear a $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 suit, $500 shoes, and a $300 belt, and you make sure that the laces match the tie and the glasses. But to welcome the Shabbat queen, you're looking like perhaps you just woke up, or you should go back to sleep, or maybe you're in the shower. We're not really sure. How could that be? How could that be? Person doesn't know what Shabbat is, could do that on a regular basis. Walk around as if it's nothing. All Shabbat, okay, so he wears the suit to the Bet Knesset. As soon as he comes home, he puts on his sweatpants and t-shirt, and he hangs out, eating sunflower seeds and drinking all day, talking about the New York Mets or some basketball team. That's Shabbat. That's how you honor Shabbat. That's ONEG Shabbat. That's how you look. That's how you act. If the queen of the world was going to come to your house, that's how you would look. That's how you would actually act. That's what you would eat. Making the Mount Sinai, Mount Everest of sunflower seeds on top of the table, like some people like to do, where they eat the sunflower seeds and they collect their saliva and the remains of the sunflower seeds on top of the table. And they'll do this sometimes inside the Bet Knesset. Then you're talking about problems of muktzeh, borer, all types of halachic issues, aside from being disgusting. And it's not allowed to be disgusting, not on Shabbat, not on weekday. But nonetheless, people they think of Shabbat as simply a day off. A day off, that's it. A person like this does not know what ONEG Shabbat is. Doesn't know what ONEG Shabbat is. And that's where the Gemara says, okay, first and foremost, you should know that it starts with your clothes. Starts with how you dress. Even your, not the dressiest dress that you have or the dressiest suit that you have, but rather the stuff that you want to relax with, should be different from the rest of Shabbat, from the rest of the week. And then furthermore, the Gemara says that when it talks about mimtzo chefzecha, from seeking your wants, this is teaching that your wants are forbidden on Shabbat. And a person has to refrain from activities that further his financial affairs. Meaning, you're not allowed to talk business on Shabbat. Not allowed to talk about what property you want to buy, what property you already bought, how good your company's doing, how terrible your company's doing, who you're going to hire, who you're going to fire. All of this talk is forbidden. Stock market, Bitcoin market, gold market, your opinion of all of these financial vehicles that you're going to invest in or want to invest in, repairing your house, how much the contractor is charging you. All of these things that people talk about freely on Shabbat, they're all forbidden. And sometimes you'll go to even inside a Bet Knesset and you'll hear the conversation of people where you see they start doing real estate transactions or other types of business transactions on Shabbat without thinking twice about it, because they figure, listen, I'm just talking. I'm not actually giving him any money. He's not giving me any money. We're just talking about, listen, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Okay, we talked about it, we'll finish the deal, and we'll close on Motzei Shabbat or on Sunday or on Tuesday or whenever. This is forbidden. This is business. First of all, you should know, business, for the most part, 99.9% of actual business is talking. All businesses. Whether you are mowing lawns, or you're selling Q-tips to hotel chains, or dog food, or stocks, or you're buying and selling Bitcoin and other types of financial vehicles, some real, some fake, nonetheless, you're doing all of these different things. Generally speaking, when you're doing business with people, 99% of the actual business is talking. Schmoozing with people, you're going to buy, you're going to sell, what did you do, what did he do, It's talking. Only a small portion of actual business is the actual real legwork, and usually it's not the guy that did the deal. Meaning, if you're going to go and you're going to go buy a building, okay, and you have to fix the building up and do, now, you, the big wig with a lot of money and so on, okay, what are you going to do? You're going to do perhaps the negotiation, whether it's with the seller or with your broker, and back and forth, lots and lots of talking. Finally, you're going to get to the actual signing, which doesn't take much effort. And then in regards to the work, fixing everything, 99.9% of the time, you're not doing the work yourself. You're hiring people, you're hiring contractors, the guy with the hammer, the guy with the saw, the guy with the nails, the guy with the glue, the guy with the sheetrock, and so on and so forth. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're just telling people what to do. Meaning, you're just talking. That's business. Most business is talking. So if most business is talking during the week, needless to say, if you're talking about business on Shabbat, it's no different than you working on Shabbat. It's no different than you working on Shabbat. Now you can say, yeah, but how come it's allowed to talk about donating money to the Bet Knesset or the Yeshiva on Shabbat and then on holiday? Because to talk about a mitzvah and to commit even financially to a mitzvah is allowed. You're not actually making the financial transaction or completing the financial transaction and exchanging money on Shabbat. You don't write a check on Shabbat because you're not allowed to write, you're not allowed to do the actual transaction, but you can commit to donating $1 million to Be'ezrat Hashem, $2 million to Be'ezrat Hashem Yeshiva, $5 million for the Tikkun HaBrit movie. You commit to doing all of those things on Shabbat, but writing the checks only on Motzei Shabbat or on Sunday. Or perhaps if you want to do it Friday to make me happy before Shabbat. But you cannot do this on Shabbat itself. Cannot do it. But you can commit to it. You can't even discuss it. You can discuss it. You could talk about it because here you're discussing a mitzvah. You're discussing a mitzvah and that's 100% allowed. I remember hearing Rabbi Ovadia one time saying that, he wrote it in one of the Sfarim, that if it wasn't for this permission to discuss a mitzvah on Shabbat, you wouldn't have any Batei Knesset. Why? Because most people, when do they come to shul? Most people, they come to shul on Shabbat and on holidays. And if you weren't allowed to get donations from them or to commit to donations on Shabbat and on Yom Tov, then you'd simply have no B'tei Knesset because nobody would know that they need to donate. So here we see, Rabotai, is that a person's clothing needs to be unique when it comes to Shabbat and Yom Tov. You have to have a special dress for Yom Tov, special shoes for Yom Tov. I would even dare say special pajamas for Yom Tov, for Shabbat. You have to have something special for those days. Same thing with your kids. They should have special clothes that are only for Shabbat and Yom Tov. Because this is a way to fulfill the mitzvah of ONEG Shabbat. ONEG Shabbat. Now, the Gemara is telling us that one of the things that people would sometimes do is talk business and desecrate ONEG Shabbat, where they think that they're observing Shabbat because they're not driving on Shabbat, but they don't realize that they're desecrating the sanctity of Shabbat by discussing all types of business. Now, on the other hand, the Gemara says that in Masechet Shabbat, page 113a, that another obligation that a person needs to have on Shabbat is to be relaxed. What does it mean, be relaxed? Removed from your mundane life. All the things that create pressure during the week, the phone calls, the text messages, your job's on the line, somebody else's job's on the line, he's hired, she's fired, this, that, all of these different things, that's not for Shabbat. That's not for Shabbat. Shabbat should be spend time with your family, eat great food, rest a little bit, pray, learn Torah. That's for Shabbat. Now, of course, if for the sake of Shlom Bayit, talking to your wife, you should do it. You should talk to your wife, even if that means you're going to talk about certain things that are, seem mundane, like the chinuch of the kids, raising the kids, and so on. But this is a mitzvah. This is a mitzvah, first of all, of the Shlom Bayit. Second of all, it's the mitzvah of chinuch, of disciplining and raising your kids. So you'll have to discuss these things with your wife, with your husband. Those things are perfectly allowed on Shabbat. Shouldn't be the whole Shabbat talking about chinuch. You should still leave time to eat, to rest, to learn Torah. Not necessarily all in that order, but nonetheless, a person needs to know that there is certain conversations that are allowed on Shabbat. Certain things that are allowed on Shabbat, even if they're not only Torah. Now, the Gemara is saying that discussing forbidden matters on Shabbat is critical. It's critical. On the other hand, the Marsha comments, and so does the Kli Yakar. In Marsha comments on Masechet Shabbat, page 113b, and the Kli Yakar in Sefer Shmot, chapter 20, verse 13, explain this whole issue of being of discussing forbidden words, forbidden conversations on Shabbat, discusses it from a different aspect. Meaning, why is there a prohibition from doing it? It says that we know that the world was created with Hashem's expressions of speech. As it says in the Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, Mishnah number 1, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said 10 things and created the world with those things. And he rested on the seventh day. What did he rest from? I mean, he wasn't hiring construction companies. He wasn't hammering any nails to put the land in the right. He wasn't doing any of this stuff. He said words, and the world was created from those words. Now, so what was really the rest? The rest was resting from words. He stopped creating with his words. So the Marsha in the Kli Yakar says that by us having an understanding of who is the one that's running the world, that he created us in his image, and that we need to do as much as we possibly can to show that it's proper for us to imitate this behavior, that on Shabbat we should likewise desist from speech creation, meaning work-related speech. Here we see that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I created you in my image, it's not a physical image, but rather it's behavior, rather it's the ability to think, discern between right and wrong, truth and lies, and so on and so forth. But also understand that Him creating Shabbat, He created Shabbat for us. He didn't create Shabbat for Himself. He doesn't need rest. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't sleep and doesn't slumber. David HaMelech says in Tehillim. So here, Shabbat was created for us to be able to be like Him. Now, obviously, we're not able to create any worlds or anything like that, but rather we can be like Him by sanctifying the Shabbat, by treating it as holy, by treating it as something unique from the rest of creation, from the rest of the week. Since He stopped creating with His words, we need to as well. We need to as well. Now, the Sefer Maaseh Rav says in the name of the Gaon Vilna that the Gaon Vilna over there also said that a person should take care that in Shabbat should not speak any other words other than Torah. All the things that he should talk about is just Torah. Now, the Sefer Charidim, this is one of the most famous works over the last 800 years that you're constantly going to hear it quoted by people. The Sefer Charidim writes that speaking pointless words on Shabbat is deemed Chilul Shabbat by some Chachamim. Pointless words is considered as if you're desecrating Shabbat. Now this, Rabotai, if you are an observant Jew, should mean the world to you before you utter the next nonsensical statement on Shabbat. Now, on the other hand, you have Chachamim like Rabbi Eliyahu Lapian. Rabbi Eliyahu Lapian had something called like a booklet of pledges, where in his city of Kelm, he had different things that he would take on himself, or different people in the community would take on themselves to learn more Torah on Shabbat, to enjoy Shabbat, and so on and so forth. And what you notice here is that there was one recurring pledge that Rabbi Eliyahu Laplan constantly wrote in this booklet of pledges, which is to minimize pointless talk. Because anyone that has it, the holiness of such a person is banished from such a person. Any type of holiness that person has disappears because of his mundane talk on Shabbat. Now, in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 150, there is a famous story about a certain Chassid. Chassid changed meaning over the years, especially the last couple hundred years, where the word Chassid you're already going to find in the Gemara from almost 2,000 years ago, 1,600 years ago. And you're going to find it in the Zohar that preceded it, in other works. But Chassid used to mean tzaddikim, people that were righteous, that did above and beyond what was required of the law, of the Torah. So if, let's say, you were required to observe Shabbat for 25 hours, they would observe Shabbat for 26 hours or 27 hours. If you were required to put on a tefillin, they would get a tefillin that had all of the idurim and the kavanot of the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of the different shitot, and so on and so forth. They weren't just going to go for the standard, they were going to do things above and beyond. So here we see a story about one of those tzaddikim, one of those chassidim. Today, chassid pretty much means anybody that likes to dance perhaps, and is relatively friendly, and wears black and white all the time. Or it's not exactly the same thing. Because sometimes you'll see people that claim to be chassidim, like this Klakowski, he claims to be a chassid, but he's a mechalel Shabbat. So it's a little confused. So real chassidim are people that do above and beyond the law. Not only they don't watch TV on Shabbat like Lukowski and the rest of his friends, but they don't even have a TV. No TV, nothing. That's what a Chassid does. Here, we have a story in the Gemara about a real Chassid. Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 150. This Chassid saw that somebody broke into his fence, broke into his field or so on, broke the fence. And he thought to himself, he didn't speak to anybody, he just thought to himself, I need to close this fence, I gotta put some things together there to make sure that nobody breaks in, and the animals don't come out, and so on. But then he realized, I just thought this. Now I didn't do it. I thought it. I didn't speak it. I thought this on Shabbat. And because of I thought it on Shabbat, I'm not going to do it at all. I'm going to leave the fence open. I'm never going to repair it. Now technically, halachically, you're allowed to think such things. You're not allowed to speak them to other people. But because he's a chassid who does above and beyond the law, he says, I thought it, my mind desecrated the oneg of Shabbat, therefore I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to fix this fence. And the Gemara says, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was so delighted by his chassid, that was so stringent with his Shabbat observance and the honor of Shabbat, he miraculously grew a tree. A tree came out of the ground that became the fence, that replaced the fence. Now, this tree was called Tzlav Chad. Now, the Arizal, and the Chida quotes the Arizal, but this is also mentioned in Sefer Adorot. Sefer Adorot is like the chronicles of all of the things that happened to Am Yisrael throughout all of the generations. He writes, it's an extraordinary work of all the different things that happened with Am Yisrael and different Chachamim throughout literally all of recorded history. Something that I think an entire team of computer experts and scholars would not be able to do today was Baruch Hashem done by one of the Chachamim of Klal Yisrael well before the age of computers and the likes. So the Arizal says it, the Chida says it, and Sefer Adorot says it, that who is this person that's mentioned in this Gemara, this Chassid, that was so righteous that just because he thought the wrong way, didn't act the wrong way, didn't desecrate Shabbat, but he thought the wrong way, therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him such a miracle. He was a person that was mentioned in the Torah. He was a reincarnation of a person named Tzlov Chad. Who is Tzlov Chad in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses? Tzlov Chad is the first person to ever desecrate Shabbat. The second Shabbat, after Am Yisrael received the Torah, there was a person that was a tree gatherer. He gathered a bunch of trees, desecrating Shabbat, disregarded the warnings. Some Chachamim, like Rabbi Akiva said, he did this for the sake of the honor of Hashem. That's why he got the merit of being reincarnated as this Chassid that's mentioned in the Gemara. Why would he gather tree and desecrate Shabbat for the honor of Hashem? He wanted to show Am Yisrael that even though we just received the Torah 1 week before it, Hashem is still expecting each and every single one of us to comply with the entire Torah. And there's no discounts. So even though we just got the Torah a week ago, you'll see, I desecrate Shabbat, Hashem will give me a death penalty of stoning. And that's exactly what happened. He desecrated Shabbat by gathering some wood. Moshe Rabbeinu killed him after getting the instructions from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to kill Tzlov Chad in the most horrific possible way, in the most public way. Everybody that saw him throw stones at him and so on until he died. The death penalty for Mechalel Shabbat is the worst possible thing on earth. Now the Gemara says that even though we do not have the Sanhedrin to give death penalties and so on, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's deen is still the one that's running the world. It's still the one that's running the world. So if you ever see somebody get hit by a car, or in those days, get run over by a bull, or or fall from a building, that's the equivalent of stoning. If you see somebody burn, that's the equivalent of one of the other death penalties. Somebody die in war, or somebody stabbed them, or perhaps that's another death penalty. Someone that drowns, it's another type of death penalty. 4 different types of death penalties. So here we see, Rabotai, that although the death penalties of the Torah, we're not allowed to deliver them in this day because there's no Sanhedrin, still, Kadosh Baruch Hu still delivers them. But then there's an interesting thing. Another interesting thing. What's the interesting thing? The very same Seder Adorot, Sefer Seder Adorot, in Parashat Noach, in Bet Alafim, Seder Adorot in Bet Alafim, 182, which is year 2188. The Seder Adorot of year 2188 brings the Gemara of Masechet Yevamot, page 90b, which says that the sages were permitted by Hashem to make takanot in order to close the fence if they see the generation or the community breaking them, to such an extent that the Torah allows the Chachamim to kill people that break these fences, even if they're not Torah violations. With the example that the Gemara itself brings, of that there was one time a person that rode a horse on Shabbat, which is a rabbinical violation. It's not a biblical violation to ride a horse on Shabbat because it's not fire. But nonetheless, it's a rabbinical violation. The sages said you're not allowed to ride a horse on Shabbat. Multiple reasons, lest you pull something from the trees, and so on and so forth. It's a rabbinical violation. But when the Chachamim saw that someone rode the horse on Shabbat, and it's going to cause others to follow suit, what did they do? The Gemara says they killed him with stoning. Even though it was a rabbinical violation, the Torah gave them permission to stone this person and kill him for this rabbinical violation. So here we see, Rabotai, that there are times where the Torah gives the sages special exceptions in order to protect all of Am Yisrael from themselves, from breaking the entire Torah and start doing all types of things that are forbidden. This is, by the way, also the reason why, even though there is disagreement among some of the sages of what electricity is, where some say electricity is fire, while others say it's makebe patish, it's a completing act. When you turn on the light, it's a completing act, which is a desecration of Shabbat. The point being is there's different debates about why turning on or off electricity is forbidden on Shabbat. Either way, regardless of which one of the sages you're talking to, they're all going to forbid turning on and off electricity on Shabbat. Whether it's because it's fire, or it's because makebe patish, or it's a something of the mundane, where it's desecrating the ONEG of Shabbat. Either way, all of those things are valid reasons to forbid each and every single one of us from doing these things. Needless to say, from watching television, where even though you watching television on Shabbat, you're not changing the channels. If you're changing the channels, then in essence you're completing either the electric current, or you're turning on a fire, or you're doing one of the many actual melachot that's forbidden on Shabbat. But if, let's say, for example, you're just watching a television screen, and you're watching some type of show or sport, or even if you're watching a shiur Torah, still it is forbidden. Even if you don't change the channels, it's still forbidden because it's not something that puts Shabbat in a status of delight, in a status of something special and sanctified among the rest of the week. So desecrating the oneg of Shabbat is in itself a critical mitzvah that each and every one of us is obligated to observe, no different than not lighting fire on Shabbat or working or other things. So here the Chachamim say that a person A person one time desecrated one of the rabbinical enactments by riding a horse, and they were allowed, and they did stone him to death. And the Seder HaDorot also says, who is this person that rode the horse? It was also another reincarnation of Tzlofchad, the very same Tzlofchad, the desecrated Shabbat, the biblical prohibition of gathering at the time of Mount Sinai. He had to be reincarnated as a person, but he desecrated the rabbinical enactments this time. He desecrated the rabbinical enactments, and he got killed again. Another set of stoning by riding a horse. So after that, he got reincarnated again, and mentioned in the Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, page 150b, and says, oh, this time around, he came back as a Chassid. That's the Chassid. If I went through all those stonings, I think I'd be a Chassid also. But that's easier said than done. Needless to say, Rabotai Karim, is that we have here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave a person multiple chances, not because he gives everybody these types of chances. Because when we read some of the things that are talked about as far as desecration of Shabbat and so on, which we'll go into in a moment, you'll see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very, very strict with people that desecrate Shabbat. He's very strict with people that desecrate Shabbat. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim, section 307, Halacha number 1, rules that on Shabbat a person may not speak of secular matters extensively. Now the Rama goes and elaborates a little further. Why? Because Shulchan Aruch, what is Shulchan Aruch doing? Shulchan Aruch is saying exactly what the Rambam said. So first, let's see what the Rambam said. The Rambam in Mishneh Torah, Ilchot Shabbat, chapter 24, halacha number 4, says the following. First, you should know that a person is forbidden to run and jump on Shabbat. We see this from the prophet Isaiah, that Shabbat should not resemble the manner in which you walk during the week. So a person should not go and start exercising on Shabbat, play basketball on Shabbat, all of these different things. The Gemara has or Midrash has a place where it says that the one city was destroyed because the people like to play with the ball. So these are things that are not desecrating Shabbat as far as the melachot of Shabbat, the 39 restrictions, but they're desecrating Shabbat as far as the ONEG of Shabbat, which is still a death penalty. It's still a death penalty, Rabotai. So it's a very big deal. So now the Rambam continues, and he says, it's forbidden to speak extensively about idle matters. As it is written, in the same exact place, the prophet Isaiah, that's the asmachta everyone is using, speaking about mundane matters. The matters in which you speak on Shabbat should not resemble the matters in which you speak during the week. So here we see the Rambam is saying that you have to control your speech and speak divrei Torah, speak things that are absolutely necessary, that are not part of the mundane world, and so on. Even if you're speaking things that are mundane to your wife, it's only things that are allowed to talk about. So you can't talk about work, business, things of that nature. So a person has to be very, very careful. But what about if somebody enjoys talking about the world events? Talks about the world events, talks about traveling to, different parts of the world. He went to the Amazon. He went to, not Amazon.com, Amazon in Africa. He went to, to the Nile River. He went to, to see the Yellowstone. He went to travel like these couple of tzaddikim that I have, the privy of being part of their life and Baruch Hashem being part of their story. Right now, they're doing a nationwide trip. A nationwide trip going to different Jewish communities around the country. But they're not just going to sightsee. What are they doing? Kiruv. They took a bunch of Tikkun Abrit flyers, stickers, bookmarks, and all types of things, and they're spreading it everywhere in every community. Baruch Hashem, they're dropping a little bit of Kiruv love, a little bit of Tikkun Abrit in every community, in the shuls, in the supermarkets, bookstores. It's amazing. Perhaps we're going to add a few of these clips to this video tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem. Really, really entertaining, amazing. It makes me very, very happy to see that people care enough about Hashem, care enough about His people, that even during their leisure, their trips of going cross country and going to different places that we would never be in, Wisconsin or Wyoming and all these different places, we don't have students in every single town and every single restaurant. So you see, people care enough about Klal Yisrael during my time where I'm going to go spend time, enjoy myself and so on. I'm still going to be an Eved Hashem. I'm still going to be a servant of Hashem. I'm still going to do Kiruv while enjoying the world of Hashem. And because I'm enjoying the world of Hashem, I'm going to do this. So people enjoy. You're allowed to enjoy. Allowed to enjoy yourself. But there's an appropriate way of enjoying yourself. So here the Rambam says, you are allowed to say certain things on Shabbat, but you're also forbidden from doing certain things on Shabbat. But what if your joy is to talk about the world events and the travel and all types of things? So comes the Ramah. The Ramah on the Shulchan Aruch. You have the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, and you have the Ramah. And in every Shulchan Aruch, you're going to see, you're going to have both of them. Or if you go look at the Chafetz Chaim also will have the Shulchan Aruch, will have the Ramah, and you'll have the Chafetz Chaim in it. So here you'll see the Ramah bring something new. What is he bringing? Something unbelievable. He says in the same Or Chaim 3071 that a person that enjoys talking about news and the matters of this nature may engage in such discussions on Shabbat since it brings him pleasure. Meaning, he likes to talk about shtuyot, likes to talk about nonsense, likes to talk about, I don't know, whatever he wants to talk about. It gives him actual joy. Because it gives him actual oneg, that makes it allowed. Not that he's allowed to talk about business. We're not talking about business. Not that he's going to do transactions because he enjoys making money. No. He likes to talk about, I don't know, some politician or something like that. He likes to talk about some sport. He likes to talk about all these different things. Yes, listen, this gives him a oneg. You'll have some poskim that are going to say, okay, it's allowed because it gives him oneg. It gives him pleasure to do so. But needless to say, Torah scholars are encouraged to direct their attention to loftier matters. But there is a big but. There is a big but. What's the but? Whoever doesn't enjoy these talks, it's forbidden for him to talk about it just for the sake of his friend's joy. Meaning, if you yourself don't enjoy talking about politics, don't enjoy talking about these trips, don't enjoy talking about the Amazon, whether it's Amazon.com or Amazon the jungle, you don't enjoy that stuff. And you have a guest that does. You have a guest, you have a friend, you have a guy that prays with you in a shul. He likes to talk about those things. You are not allowed to talk to him about those things for his joy. Not allowed. He's allowed to talk about it only to somebody else that enjoys it. You are forbidden from talking about it. So it's not just an open season to allow people to talk about whatever they want. It's not just an open season. And the Chachamim gives an example for this leniency, if you will, for people that like to talk about shtuyot, talk about nonsense all day. Chachamim give an analogy. What is this analogy? They say that imagine there was a king. And the king had a feast that he invited all of his countrymen to enjoy the feast and so on. And everybody was invited to this feast. And as soon as everybody arrived, the king made sure that there is chefs of all kinds, food of all kinds, no shortage of anything. Anybody can ask for whatever they want and they get it. So comes one poor guy who says, I want dried bread. Dried bread, bread that's like, solid 3, 4, 5, 6 days old. If it's a little older with a little green on it, I even prefer that one. So they don't usually carry such food, usually throw it out. But the king commanded, whatever they want, you give them. Right? That's the feast. So they go look. After a lot of looking, they finally found one extremely dry piece of bread with a little bit of green on it, and to give it to the guy. Chachamim say that is this leniency. Why? Akadosh Baruch Hu tells you, I have a feast. I have everything you can possibly ever want. If you can truly enjoy Shabbat the way you're supposed to, it's supposed to feel like you are in Olam Haba to a certain extent. It's a small piece of Olam Haba, the real joy of Shabbat. You have everything available to you. You can study Torah on a higher level. The food tastes better than it does the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the year. It's just everything is different. The Torah that you learn on Shabbat is unique. The understanding you have is unique. Just everything is unique on Shabbat. Everything is unique on Shabbat. And instead of taking advantage of all of those unique things, what do? You want dried bread? You want to talk about the nonsense that you talked about during the week? Okay, you want to do it? Do it. We'll give you dried bread. That's the leniency. You want to talk about the news? You want to talk about world events? That's what you want to talk about? Okay, we have a leniency for people like you. You want to be homeless? You want to act like a poor person even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu is offering you all of the delights of the world? Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. The Gemara says, Rabotai Karim, that there was two people, very, very special people that were very close friends from birth. Rabbi HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and Antoninus. Antoninus, who was the Caesar. And there's a very unique and long story about how these two met as babies, where when Rabbi HaKadosh was born, there was a decree that the Jews were forbidden from doing a Brit Milah. Forbidden from doing a Brit Milah. But, of course, his father, the Gdol Hador, the Nasi of Israel, no way in the world was going to not have a Brit Milah for his son, and did a Brit Milah. And of course, one Rasha spoke about it, and he got caught. And he said, how could it be that the leader of the Jewish people goes against the Caesar? Goes against the Caesar, the Roman Caesar. We have to bring you to the Caesar himself, and he'll deal with you. Now, because Rabban Gamliel was a big tzaddik, was a very, very honorable person, they couldn't just dishonor him and so on. So they treated him in a certain way. And they took him from Eretz Yisrael, they got to Rome, and before the meeting with the king, they left him at a member of the king's family. The family met Rabban Gamliel and his wife and the baby. And he said, why are you here? And the mother of Rabbi HaKadosh said, they want to, tomorrow we have to meet the king because they're going to kill my son. Why are they going to kill your son? Your son is, 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old. Why would they kill your son? What did your son ever do to anybody? Oh, because we have a belief that we have to do brit milah, we have to do a circumcision, and that's our belief. That's how we serve our God, and we're not willing to forsake that, and that's why we did it. And this reached the heart of the wife of this non-Jewish woman that was hosting them, and she said to her, "Listen, I also just had a baby, so I understand that you're willing to give your life for your son. That's why I want you to do this for me. What do you want me to do? I want you to take my baby, and take him to the Caesar. And I'll take your baby and keep him here. Why? You show him my baby. People don't know whose baby's who. All babies pretty much look the same. You show him my baby. My baby's not circumcised. My baby's not circumcised, so they'll see that the guy that's talking about you guys said that you circumcised your baby. He's a liar. Why? Because the baby's not circumcised." Rabbi Kadosh's mother was such a tzadikah. She said, "I'm only going to do this on one condition. I know you want to save my life. I know you want to save my son's life. But I'm only willing to do it on the one condition. You have a condition? I'm trying to save your life? That's what I would think." But Baruch Hashem, she didn't think that. She said, "Yeah, what's the condition? Don't breastfeed my son. Don't breastfeed my son. Why? The milk affects the neshama. It has to come from a Jew. Has to come from a Jew. Has to come from me." She was a righteous woman. She said, "I agree." And the next day they went to the Caesar. Caesar sees Rabban Gamliel. "Oh, wow, well, what's Kvodo here? Oh, no, he's here because he's going against the Caesar. He did a circumcision." "Really, Rabban Gamliel, you went against me like that? Let me see the baby." They see the baby, and the baby is uncircumcised. The king gets furious at this wicked messenger. He says, "This is how you treat my friend Rabban Gamliel? This is what you say? You brought him and his family all the way here for nothing? The baby is perfectly like the rest of us." They ended up killing that messenger, Baruch Hashem. Now, after Rabban Gamliel went back with his wife, and they gave the son, whose name was Antoninus, back to his mother, and took their son, Rabbi Yehuda, the little baby Yehuda, took him back. The mother of Antoninus says, "I only want one thing in return for what I did." She says, "Sure, anything. You saved my son's life. Sure, whatever you want. What can we do for you?" She says, "I want you to breastfeed my son. I want a little bit of the holiness that's in you to go into my son." And that's exactly what happened. And that impacted his neshama. Years later, Antoninus and Rabbi Akadosh became very dear friends, where they're mentioned in the Gemara. They used to study Torah at night in secret. They used to study Torah at night in secret. Eventually Antoninus became a righteous Jew, a tzaddik, kadosh, gadol ador, that he actually pasken halacha even. There's certain times that you see in the Gemara, Antoninus debating Rabbi Akadosh. Antoninus is right. Became tzaddik kadosh. The holiness of Rebbe's mother's milk affected his neshama to the point where he wanted Torah, but he had to hide from his people. So every night he would go underground. You would always have to travel with bodyguards. As soon as he got to Rebbe's house, he would kill his bodyguard and study Torah with Rebbe. So there's no witnesses. So all of this was in preparation for this story. One time, Antoninus, before he converted, comes to Rebbe on Shabbat. Surprise visit. Rebbe sees him. Says, "Oh, my dear friend, how are you? Come, enjoy with us. Have food." And Antoninus sits with Rebbe and the people there, and he's eating the food, and he says, "I have never tasted food as good as this. I've never tasted food as good as this. Can you please make this for me again the next time I come?" Rebbe says, of course, you can come here anytime, no problem. No problem. I want this food. He says, no problem. He says, okay, I'm going to come back later this week. I'm going to come back in the middle of the week. Rebbe says to him, you'll be welcomed and we'll make you the feast. Antoninus comes back with his whole entourage in the middle of the week. The whole table set, all the different types of foods and so on. And Antoninus starts eating, but he's unimpressed. And he eats something else, and he's unimpressed. And he eats something else, and he's unimpressed. And he looks at his friend, Rebbe Akadosh. He says, my dear friend, what happened? How come the food tastes different? Did you not make something? Are you lacking any type of ingredients? Because in my kingdom, we have all ingredients from all over the world that you could have easily asked me for if you cannot afford them. Rebbe says to him, no, your highness, we have the ingredients. It's the same exact food. Antonino says to him, it's not the same food. I tasted the food. It was just a few days ago. It's a world apart from what I'm tasting right now. Is it because of money? Maybe I'm not worth it for you to make me that food? He says, no, chas v'shalom, my dear friend. It's the same exact thing. He said, are you lacking the ingredients? He goes, no, we're not lacking the ingredients. Except one ingredient. Antonino's surprised. Rebbe, one ingredient? You could have asked me. He says, Kvodo does not have it. He says, I have ingredients from all the four corners of the world. He says, this ingredient you don't have. Antoninus, surprised, says to him, what ingredient is it? And I'll get it for you. He says, you don't have to get it. The ingredient is called Shabbat. Shabbat, the holiness of Shabbat, changes the taste of the food. If you want this food to taste as good as the first time you ate it, you can't come back on a Wednesday. You have to come back on Shabbat. And that's exactly what happened. Antoninus wanted to see this. Is it possible? And he saw when he came on Shabbat, the same amazing dish tasted a world apart. Why? There's an extra kedusha ingredient in your food on Shabbat, Rabotai. This is one of the things that a person needs to enjoy on Shabbat. So much so that if a person has the ability to eat all different types of dishes on Shabbat, and he doesn't, he simply skips it, or he doesn't cook it, or he doesn't care about it. He says, no, I'm just going to eat some tuna with pretzels. Yeah, but you can eat steak 3 times a day during the week. Why can't you eat good, solid food, amazing food on Shabbat? Who has the time? Who has the patience to cook? I'll just go eat at somebody's house, and then for myself, I'll just eat some tuna with crackers. You should know, you're desecrating the ONEG of Shabbat, and there is a special punishment for that. What's the special punishment? In a new sefer that we have on our website, in the section that's ebook section that you can download for free, we have a sefer that was written, put together by the Holmaner Rebbe. It's called The Holiness of Shabbat. And here he brings different sources from all across the Torah, from the Zohar, from the Gemara, from different Chachamim, about the sanctity of Shabbat and the reward, the punishment, and so on. And he says the following. In page number 4, he says that there are 3 sins that can lead to the death of a woman during childbirth. And one of them is because of not being careful with lighting the Shabbat candles. Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, page 39b. Meaning that desecration of Shabbat leads to the death of women during childbirth, because she didn't honor the Shabbat. And we're not talking about desecrating of Shabbat on purpose, where she drove on Shabbat and so on. Rather, she wasn't careful with lighting the candles before Shabbat. She cared less about it. She ended up lighting them even 5 seconds too late, and it's already Shabbat. It's desecration of Shabbat. That already puts her in danger. She has to be very, very careful because Shabbat is a big deal. Shabbat is a big deal. Then he says that a person that's a apostate, that's a heretic, for one sin, is not regarded as a person that's a apostate of the entire Torah. For any other type of sin, if he stole, if he lied, if he cheated, if he did a lot of other things, even if he murdered, he's not considered a heretic of the entire Torah. But if he desecrates Shabbat on purpose, or he serves an idol, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or any type of other idol, then even though it's one mitzvah that he's desecrating, it's considered as if he's a heretic against the entire Torah. Shabbat or idolatry is considered the same weight as the entire Torah. That's also why one of the tikkunim, one of the rectifications for desecration of idol worship is observance of Shabbat. Now, if the Zohar Kadosh says in Tikkunei Zohar, page 69b, Tikkun 24, says that if a person lights fire on Shabbat, and the Holy One, blessed be He, says, I quenched the fire so that it would not burn, yet you ignite it. You will therefore burn in Gehenom. Meaning that a person that desecrates Shabbat has a special account with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and a very special punishment. And the Rashit Chochmah Masechet Gehenom says, a person that desecrates Shabbat on purpose without doing tshuva goes to Gehenom and doesn't come out, even after Mashiach comes. Furthermore, it says that a flagrant desecrator of Shabbat and Yom Tov, with no consideration of the honor of the Creator, just as they did not keep Shabbat in this world, so they do not keep in the future world, and they have no peace in Gehenom. Meaning, the rest of the people that are in Gehenom for different sins, they get a break on Shabbat. Hashem turns off the fire on Shabbat for them. But a person that desecrated Shabbat, even on Shabbat they get burned. Even on Shabbat they get punished severely. It says those wicked who never keep Shabbat, the fire of Gehenom never subsides for them. And all the wicked in Gehenom ask about them. And the angels of justice reply to these other neshamot that are in Gehenom. Because they stopped, they're taking a break. Their punishment is taking a break. But there's a group of people that are continuing to get punished. And say, why are they getting punished? I thought it's a break at Shabbat. So the angels say, these are the Reshaim that denied the existence of the most holy, blessed be He, and desecrated the entire Torah by not keeping Shabbat. And all of the wicked people emerge from their place to look at those people that are even more wicked than them because they desecrated Shabbat. As one angel puts the bodies of the Shabbat desecrators into Gehenom, within the view of the other wicked people who see that their worms do not die, nor does their fire extinguish itself, all the wicked surround them and announce, this so-and-so person is wicked, who has no consideration for the honor of his Creator, and denied the existence of the Holy One, blessed be He, and the entire Torah. Woe to him! It would have been better for him had he not been created at all. If so, he would not come to this judgment and action. This is also Zohar, volume 2, page 151. So here we see people that desecrate Shabbat have a very, very big problem. Again, everything is subject to tshuva. If a person does tshuva, starts keeping Shabbat, they can put themselves in a very good place, which I'll go into in a moment. But if somebody dies as a mechalel Shabbat, they have a unfortunate permanent punishment. Now, sometimes there are people that say, okay, fine, I'm not driving on Shabbat, but this whole ordeal that you've been talking about for an hour plus, about ONEG Shabbat, special clothes, special this, special that, whatever, I'll do what I can. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Saying, I'll do what I can, like it's like, whenever I get a chance, I'll do it. If I don't get a chance, I won't do it. It's like, if I finish work in time, then I'll cook. If I finish this in time, then I'll set the table. It's not a good idea. Not a good idea. Why? Page 261b in the Zohar says that there's a special mazik, spirit, called nega. Nega is like lesion. that has jurisdiction over all the tables that were not set on Shabbat with proper delicacies. Meaning, if you simply don't feel like setting your table before Shabbat with beautiful things, with food, with whatever it is to make it beautifying the table, that it doesn't look like you're at McDonald's, that it's a beautiful table for Shabbat, it's honorary, it's beautiful, like the queen is coming, the king is coming. You just put, let me put some plastic plates and I don't know, maybe I'll put some hummus there and that's it. It's enough for everybody. I'll set it whenever. There is a mazik, and they even give you the name. Takes the account personally. Takes the account personally. Why? That's the job. That's the job, Rabotai. You're desecrating the ONEG of Shabbat. If a person that can afford the delight of to do ONEG Shabbat, to cook, to do all these beautiful things, but doesn't, then the oneg, meaning the delight, the pleasure that was supposed to be given to that person, is converted for him as a nega of leprosy. Tikkunei Azor 21 and 58. So here we see that a person that does not treat Shabbat like it's a special day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has special employees of his, special mazikin that bring punishment to such a person. When Am Yisrael did not keep Shabbat the appropriate way, the Zohar Chadash, Parashat Beshalach, page 37b, says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to wake up Am Yisrael, sent them Amalek to attack Am Yisrael because they didn't keep Shabbat the right way. A person that lies on Shabbat, likes to tell fairy tale stories and made up stories just to, for whatever benefit that they have, on Shabbat, it's as if they've lied about the entire Torah. Why? Shabbat, not only are you not allowed to waste your words, but to have forbidden speech on Shabbat is magnified even worse. Magnified even worse. Now, the Zohar also says that a person should really add time to their Shabbat. Even though it says, let's say, 25 minutes, you shouldn't necessarily be one of those people where as soon as it's, 25 hours, it's, let's say it's 7 p.m., that's when it's supposed to come out. You're like out there at like 6:59 already, looking for 3 stars, and you're looking, oh yeah, that's 3. No, that's planes. I hate those planes. And you start cursing the people on the plane, and you're angry that it's not the end of Shabbat. In so many words, if you're looking forward for Shabbat to end, also not a good idea. Why not a good idea? Because Shabbat is supposed to bring blessing to a person. Shabbat is the source of all blessing. And people that don't add a minimum amount of time to Shabbat, as Tikkunei Azor says, and also to festivals, if that person is a scholar, he loses his wisdom. If he's wealthy, his wealth departs from him, and he becomes deprived of blessings. So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I gave you all of this amazing things. The reason is because of the source of blessings is Shabbat. One should care less about the source of my blessings. Fine, I'll take away the blessings. Sometimes a person can lose all of their money because they simply cutting Shabbat short by 5 minutes. Now, sometimes you're going to see that there are certain people that they're avdalah. The avdalah to go back from Shabbat into the mundane. Some people, they do avdalah 2 seconds. 2 seconds, they're back, they're smoking cigarettes, they're driving cars, that's it, it's the end. Other times, especially in the Hasidish world or the Sephardi world, you'll see that sometimes you'll have somebody that's doing avdalah 10, 15, 20 minutes. Does avdalah with the songs, with the this, with the that. Ooh, long. Which one do you prefer? Some of us prefer quick one. Come on, I want that cigarette. I want to go back to my phone. I want this, I want that. Think twice before you do that. Why? That Hasid, that Sephardi guy, that Tzaddik that's doing a long avdalah could be saving you. Why is it saving you? Page 14b says that upon the departure of Shabbat, there are evil forces that come out that were not allowed to be attacking or damaging anybody in the world during Shabbat. But on Motzei Shabbat, they come out of their hole and they glide throughout the world, striving to rule over the nation of Israel. And therefore the sages instituted a recitation of the Song of Demons, which refers to Hashem's protection of the righteous from the demons. And when they see that the Jewish people are praying and reciting this psalm, reciting Avdalah in prayer and over a cup of wine, they fly away from them and onto the desert. So you'll see that when someone goes through the entire nusach of the Avdalah, it's not just because we like to sing. Chachamim instituted that and added that to the Avdalah to make it a little lengthier in order to protect the people. In order to protect the people. And whoever fulfills the mitzvah of eating 3 meals on Shabbat is saved from 3 evils: the birth pangs of Mashiach, retribution of Gehenom, and the war of Gog uMagog. This is Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 118. So a lot of people think that if they simply keep Shabbat, they don't drive on Shabbat, then they're not going to have to suffer Gog uMagog, they're not going to go to Gehenom, and so on and so forth. No. What the Gemara is in essence trying to tell you is that if a person knows how to not only honor the Shabbat as far as not desecrating it, not driving on Shabbat, not working, and so on and so forth, the 39 restrictions, but on top of it has 3 meals. What does it mean 3 meals? Why does Hashem care if you eat 3 times? Those 3 meals should all be different. Those 3 meals should all be special. Those 3 meals should all sanctify the Shabbat even greater. Should show ONEG Shabbat. If you know how to observe and to sanctify the Shabbat in order to have ONEG Shabbat, then surely you're going to be preparing for it the whole week. Surely it's going to be on your mind throughout the whole week, throughout all of your time, because that means that Shabbat is a big deal to you. And if Shabbat is a big deal to you, then surely the rest of the Torah is going to be a big deal to you. The rest of the Judaism is going to be a big deal to you. And therefore, those actions will lead you to be saved from Gehenom, saved from the birth pangs of Mashiach, saved from all of the evils of the world. Why? When a person knows what ONEG Shabbat is, he knows what Judaism is. He knows what Judaism is. Now, when somebody first starts keeping Shabbat, you don't necessarily teach them about ONEG Shabbat on day 1 if they're somebody that's struggling with the most minuscule of things. You know, if they're struggling, let's say, for example, they have to smoke non-stop. We tell them, listen, it's better that you sleep the whole Shabbat rather than smoke even a single cigarette. So you're not going to tell that guy, listen, ONEG Shabbat and all of these other things, don't speak mundane. No, for that person, it's like 911. You have to first save the life and just get the guy to stop smoking. Now, once the person is already in for a little while, then you start telling them about learn more Torah, do more mitzvot, eat food, rest, and so on and so forth. And have the ONEG of Shabbat. But the key is to know that for all of us that have already been keeping Shabbat for a long time, we have to improve. We have to improve with our conversations. We have to improve with our learning. We have to improve with everything, including hosting guests. Many times people will host guests that are simply their friends that are just exchanging who's going to pay for the dinner that week. It's good to have friends and to invite people from time to time and, you eat at their house, they eat at your house, and so on and so forth. But don't think for a moment that that is really, having guests as the mitzvah. It's simply nice to do it, and, you're just paying their bill for this week, and perhaps they'll pay your bill for next week. You'll invite you. But really what a person should do, if you're going to have guests, have a Talmid Chacham come to your house. Have someone, at least, if they're going to come, they're going to add Kedusha to your house. They're going to add more Torah learning to your house. Not just someone that's going to talk to you about baseball and football and politics. Why? Because if you're going to have that, you're going to bring somebody that's going to create damage to themselves as well as to you. It's better off they don't come. But if you're going to have a Torah scholar, Talmid Chacham, an Avrech, Yeshiva Bachurim, come to your house, say some Divrei Kodesh, some Divrei Torah, learn with you, and so on, then, okay, that's a fantastic guest. That's a fantastic guest. That's worth investing into. But unfortunately, many times people don't think that ONEG Shabbat is an obligation. They think it's like, oh, I wish I had a great Shabbat, and some people have this. No. ONEG Shabbat is something that practically everybody can do. Everybody can do in their own capacity. Some people can do it with the food that they make. Some people can do it with much more than food. With clothes, with the place, with the way the house is, with the kids, with everything. You could literally honor Shabbat in a million different ways. But not if you wait for the last minute. You have to start doing it throughout the whole week. Throughout the whole week. I have one person that I know that there was a drink that they like. And apparently in America, they don't sell this drink. It's some Israeli drink. And one day they found somebody that was selling this drink online. And they ordered it. And he says that they got this. And him and his wife, they got it. And they go, oh, we're going to have it. Remember that trip we went to Israel? It's fun. Yeah, let's have it. And right before they open up the package and take the drink out, it's like, oh, you know what? Let's save it. Save it. I've been waiting for this drink for, I don't know, a few years, I guess. I want this drink. Yeah, but it's Tuesday. Like, what's so special about a Tuesday? And there's tzaddik and tzaddikah. What is it? You know what? Let's wait for Shabbat. Let's wait for Shabbat. Why? This drink, it's good. But on Shabbat, it'll be better. Rabotai, you can sanctify the Shabbat with everything. With everything. And each and everything that you do for the sake of Shabbat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will pay for it. So much so that the Gemara in Masechet Beitzah, page 15b, says, Levu alai ve'ani poreah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go borrow money if you have to, in order to sanctify my Shabbat, in order to have better quality kosher meat, in order to have a more beautiful spread on your tables, in order to have more beautiful chairs for Shabbat, in order for my Shabbat to be more beautiful. Go borrow money if you have to. And I promise you I'm going to pay for it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go borrow and I'm paying for it. For Shabbat. Levu alai v'ani poreah. Chachamim say this is for all mitzvot. All mitzvot, you can borrow money for the sake of sanctifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. This, Rabotai, is critical. Critical for each and every one of us. Why? Because the Gaon Vilna, who knows a whole lot more than what we do, toiled and toiled and toiled for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the sake of his Torah, understood what Kedusha is. Now sometimes you're going to see that a person is a Baal Tshuva, and they're doing a Shabbat that's like out of this world. Whereas a person that's from birth, perhaps they got a little bit too used to Shabbat. Or someone that has done Tshuva, but a long time ago, they became like someone that's been religious their whole life. This type of shiur is for everyone. Why? Because all of us get used to things. We get used to the mitzvot. We get used to Shabbat. We get used to the holidays. And we start treating them as if they're every other day. We all have to get stronger with it. All of us have to work on ourselves in order to get the Shabbat, the honor that it deserves, the honor that we're obligated to give it. Because when we do, all of the blessings in the world, Rabotai, come. Now, to finalize a few things, I know we started off on a somewhat negative note. We talked about these couple of Reshaim that like to spread rumors and so on. We're also going to finish on that note in a sense of a word of advice that I heard not only from my own Rav, Rav Ephraim Kachlon, but I also learned from another Chacham, Rav Meir Eliyahu. I heard this from two Chachamim, where they said, listen, surely there are Reshaim in the world, and unfortunately sometimes those Reshaim are rabbis. They're called rabbis. They're fake rabbis, but nonetheless, they're rabbis according to the world. And you can't stand these people, rightly so. You hate these people that desecrate Hashem's name, rightly so. You want to defend Hashem's honor, rightly so. Don't talk about it on Shabbat. Don't talk about it in front of your kids. Don't. It's not a Shabbat conversation. And it's definitely not a conversation anytime in front of your kids. Don't talk about wicked rabbis in front of your kids. Why? Because the kid doesn't know the difference yet of wicked rabbi, good rabbi. He starts hearing this guy's wicked, that guy's wicked, that guy's wicked, that guy's wicked. He's going to say, listen, my Rosh Yeshiva, he's wicked. My Chavruta, he's wicked. He's going to start saying, oh, everybody's wicked. He doesn't know the difference between the mundane and the Kodesh. He doesn't know. So, why am I saying this? Many times, you don't talk to your spouse the whole week about the things you learned during the week. Perhaps you learned it from one of my lectures. Perhaps it's my fault that you learned it from me. And I never told you, don't talk about this stuff on Shabbat. So now, first off, I apologize, I didn't. I apologize, I didn't tell you not to talk about it on Shabbat. But now, I'm telling you, don't talk about this stuff on Shabbat. Mitzvot, Kedusha, Yirat Shamayim, Tikkun HaBrit, everything you can talk about on Shabbat. But wicked rabbis don't talk about on Shabbat. Why? On Shabbat, it's not the time. On Shabbat, sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name. On Shabbat, your kids, your wife, your husband, your family, Torah, that's your responsibility. And you don't want those kids that don't see you the whole week to hear you talk badly about rabbis when they don't really know the difference between this bad rabbi and this good rabbi. It just sounds like everybody's bad. So don't do it on Shabbat. Don't do it on Shabbat. This, Be'ezrat Hashem, will give us a little bit more insight of what we need to do, what we need to work on. Be'ezrat Hashem, this too will make each of our Shabbats more holy, each of our Shabbats more special, where the next time you are about to drink something special like this cute couple, you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to drink this one on Shabbat. The next time you want to wear something special, you say, you know what, I'm going to wear this on Shabbat. The next time you think of anything special, you're going to say, how could I use this for Shabbat? Make your Shabbat holy. When you make your Shabbat holy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that's my kid. That's my kid. Why? He looks like me. She looks like me. She is honoring the Shabbat. She is not wasting words on Shabbat. She's not creating nonsense on Shabbat. She's sanctifying the Shabbat. And this, Be'ezrat Hashem, will help each one of our Shabbats become holy enough that it impacts the world around us for the positive, for the holiness, and Be'ezrat Hashem, to the point where each and every single one of us will be able to see Mashiach Tzidkenu one day and say, Shabbat Shalom. Kol tu, b'cha v'atzlacha, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll see each other tomorrow. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen. Shalom v'cha, everyone. I'm making a short message for the all the people that ask me all the time if they have money coming in and they want to help with kiruv, but they also want to help the poor people that we usually do during the holidays, but also during the year. They always ask me, is there something going on? And the truth is, there's always something going on. I always tell you during the lectures of different stories that we deal with, whether it's to help somebody come up with money for a surgery, or to help a poor family have food for Shabbat, or to help pay for tuition for someone that simply doesn't have it. And the stories go on and on and on and on. And in a moment, you're going to see something that just happened in the last couple of days. A family that's so poor in Eretz Yisrael that did not have money to buy simply normal mattresses. They were sleeping on something the equivalent of metal. The only thing this reminds me of is the concentration camps, Hashem Yishmor. And these stories come across our desk on a regular basis. And after verification, when we send our team members to go and see and make sure that everything is legitimate, we try to do our best to help. And there's just not enough time in a day to make a campaign for every single cause. So what we do is we simply give, and we trust that Hashem will give us to help people, because there's just not enough time. And sometimes time is very sensitive, so it takes time to verify things, but also it's just one of those things where you really can't wait for people to decide whether they want to help this poor person or not. If there's a need, we're there. And Be'ezrat Hashem will continue to be there. So for any of you that is contemplating what to do with that maaseh, with that 10% that you give that you need to give as a Jew and also as a non-Jew, for the sake of Torah, whether to give it just to kiruv, or to give it to help people do tshuva, or to give it to help poor people and how to mix it. Bottom line is, our organization does it all, and we do it on a regular basis, and there's simply not enough, because there's so many people that need help. It breaks your heart. And you'll see that in this video, our team member, and it breaks your heart, our team member starts crying. That's how hard some of these situations are. And we try to publicize a lot of different videos without embarrassing anyone and showing faces, to show people that their money is going to good places, to help people not only do tshuva, not only publicize the Torah, publicize Hashem's name and His glory, but also to help people survive in this difficult world. So if you want to help us, you want to join us, you want to be a partner with us, Be'ezrat Hashem is very, very happy to be a partner with you, and we look forward to hearing more and more good news, so we can tell you that you are part of another big miracle that happened to someone in Klal Yisrael. Call to Bachar V'Atzlacha.
אנשים יקרים, אני באתי פה לבית של משפחה נזקקת. האמא אושפזה בבית חולים עם כאבים מאוד חזקים בגב. הבאתי לה עכשיו סל מזון לשבת. חשכו עיניי, אני בא לי לבכות, תראו על איזה מזרון היא יושנת, כל הברזלים בחוץ. תראו, על זה היא יושנת, מזה היא קיבלה דלקת שלא עוברת לה. תראו, זה המזרונים שהם יושנים אליהם. אני חייבת את העזרה שלכם. אני פשוט ישבתי על המיטה, כל הברזלים תקועים לה בגב. תראו מה זה, אני פשוט נוגעת בברזל. על מה אמא יושנת? יושנת על ברזלים, בגלל זה כואב לה הגב. כן? עכשיו אנחנו מביאים לה מזרונים חדשים, ונשים לה על המיטה. תודה רבה לארגון בעזרת השם ולרב ירון שדאג לפני שבת למשפחה נזקקת למזרונים חדשים. הם ישנו המשפחה על מזרונים קרועים עם ברזלים בחוץ. ארגון בעזרת השם אין עליכם בעולם.